All right, let's talk Oregon Ducks. We've been talking about Oregon a lot recently, and there's good reason. Oregon, obviously, one of the top teams in college football. They've proven it in years past. A little bit of a transition year. Some coaches have left. They've had to bring in a lot of transfers. But the good news for you Oregon Ducks fan is that these new guys, these transfers, these freshmen, we've covered a lot of them, are doing really, really impressive things. And there's one that just got incredible praise. We'll break that down in just a second. But first, I'm Nick. That's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. One of the things we talk about all the time on this channel is that modern day college football has become essentially the NFL. And anyone who follows the NFL understands that because of free agency every season, a team's going to lose a lot of quality players. And Oregon is dealing with that as well. They had a lot of guys graduate primarily or go into the draft, head on to the National Football League. They've had some coaches go on to the National Football League too. So what does that mean if you're Oregon? It means you need to replenish with quality players. You can't rebuild. It's time to reload. And they've done that in spade this offseason. But there's been one new addition that hasn't gotten a lot of praise until recently. I think Ducks fans will appreciate this. Let's pull up the report courtesy of Athlon Sports. Oregon co-defensive coordinator Chris Hampton has expressed high praise for safety Dylan Thieneman, emphasizing his exceptional work ethic during post-practice media availability on Thursday. His work ethic is like no other guy I've ever coached. That's obviously high praise. I think the sky is the limit, Hampton said. Thieneman, a transfer from Purdue, brings impressive credential to the Ducks defense. As a freshman in 2023, he led all Big Ten defensive backs, all of them with 104 tackles, including 70 solos, and recorded 6 picks. This fall, Thieneman will be a key piece to the Oregon secondary, which lost veterans like Jabbar Muhammad, Kobe Savage, Nico Reed, and Brandon Johnson this offseason. Side note, Kobe Savage may be the greatest name of all time. I think that's awesome. But if you look at the Enemy and what he could bring to this Oregon defense, it's a much needed guy ready to break out and star. He did good things for Purdue in 2023 as a freshman. I think now he's in a better environment, obviously, and I think he's going to do really incredible things for this Oregon defense. Again, this is a team that has to reload a lot of talent, and guys like the Enemy will certainly help them do just that. All right, Miles, I'm curious your thoughts on all of this, but Oregon fans, you first in the comment section below. Of all the transfers that Oregon has brought in, who's the one guy you expect to have the biggest day one impact? Again, talking transfers, biggest day one impact. You have a lot of great options to choose from. Doesn't matter offense, defense, special teams. Give us your day one impact transfer for this Oregon Ducks team. Put it in the comment section below. Really want to hear from you guys. But Mize, over to you now. What are your thoughts on this latest out of Oregon?
Yeah, Nick, I think this is a good sign for the Ducks because this is a team coming off, I would say, one of the best coverage seasons by a team. They're in top five of coverage. They really did a lot of great work, but then they lose so many guys, whether it's, transfer portal, whether it's guys going to the draft, they have to replace a lot of high level players. What they do, they go out, they hit the portal themselves. They bring in a lot of young guys as well. They actually have three young freshman DBs coming up in the ranks. They're not really ready to break out, but they have some impressive young freshmen coming up as well that I think were interesting. But this Thieneman, he's the guy. This is a guy that's going to take them to the next level. This is a guy that's going to get some serious playing time and be a big time contributor to this program. I think we've already seen that. We've already heard about what he's done. Co-defensive coordinator Chris Hampton comes out, talks about him. You hear about this team and what's going on, but you look at his, stats, you hear all that. That's all great. But this guy is just, he stands out everywhere he goes so far. When he was at Purdue, he became the FWA Defensive Freshman of the Year. He was, Big Ten Freshman of the Year as well. This guy just came out and did a lot of really great stuff early on. So I think this is a young player who did good at a lower level of college football at Purdue. Now moving up to the big leagues, the top of the top, talking about Oregon Ducks, talking about a contender. Purdue's good. I'm sure they face some nice teams. They do some good stuff, but it's not Oregon. That's the key here. This is a guy that wants to test himself at the highest level, hit the transfer portal, actually was the number one safety in the portal, number 11 player overall, number one safety in the portal, came out to the Oregon Ducks. I think this is just such a good sign for the Ducks secondary. The other guys they got Naheem Offord, Dorian Brew, and one other guy that's slipping my mind, but they've got three really good looking young corners as well to this team that I think are going to contribute very, very well. So so far, everything's looking really good. I think the Ducks have done just enough to kind of upgrade this secondary, led 100% leaps and bounds by a guy like Thieneman. But I think they aren't going to see the huge step back. Losing five guys that were contributors on your secondary is kind of difficult, but I think they have enough guys in house now. They've brought in enough guys through the transfer portal to show this is a team ready to not take a step back, but stay where they are, which is a very, very good team in the secondary, led by Thieneman. I think this team is going to be very impressive to watch next season.
And let's not forget, this is a matchup conference. Like football's become a matchup league in terms of these two conferences, the mega conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC. You got to bring in players to match up against the top competition. And Thieneman has done a phenomenal job against a particular program that had a really good day against Oregon on a sunny January afternoon in Southern California. We won't get into the specifics. We don't need to talk about that. But if you look at what Dylan Thieneman did, his 2 seasons with Purdue against Ohio State, he gave up 2 games, 1 catch combined, 9 yards, right? According to the folks at PFF. 2 games, 1 catch, 9 yards. That's the kind of coverage, that's the kind of defense Oregon needs in terms of overcoming Ohio State in a playoff environment, right? Neutral site. They can beat them at home. Obviously, we've seen that before. In fact, they've even beaten Ohio State in Ohio State a few years ago, I believe. But the reality is, Oregon's going to have to find clutch, big time players who can step up in the playoffs and lock down good offenses. And Thieneman, 2 seasons against Ohio State, 1 catch, 9 yards. That's winning football. That's championship football. That's going on a deep postseason run. That's the kind of transfers you need to take the next step, especially when you lost a lot of guys. And I think that's what Thieneman's going to bring to this Oregon secondary. I think the work ethic part, by the way, is really, really important. He was a good player for Purdue, certainly in 2023, got a lot of accolades, but he's coming to a new program in Oregon to challenge himself to see if he can compete against the best of the best. But sometimes when these transfers come and they get kind of recruited again, right? When you're recruited, everyone loves you, says you're the best thing in the world. Transfers, you kind of go through that process again. Everyone loves you, says you're the best thing in the world. Sometimes you can get a little bit of a big head. Sometimes you get a little bit of an ego, right? He knows he shut down Ohio State back-to-back seasons. He knows he's a really good player, but it doesn't affect his mindset. He's working his butt off. If you listen to Coach Hampton, which is obviously a really good indicator right there. If he can be kind of the new leader too and kind of the trendsetter, the culture modeler for the secondary, despite being new to Eugene, that would be just icing on the cake. And this is one of the things that can take Dan Lanning's defense to the next level. And we really need it, right? We know this Oregon's offense has been spectacular, but the reality is defensively, in big moments against top competition over the past couple of seasons, little lackluster. If we're being totally frank, if we're being totally honest, I think a guy like Thieneman can turn a lackluster defensive performance into a championship defensive performance. Again, it's early. We have to see. But if past is any indication of the future, when Oregon plays Ohio State next time, they won't have nearly the offensive success because of what Thieneman can bring.
Yeah, Nick, and I want to touch on one thing we didn't cover at the time, and people may know this, may not know this, because I don't think many Oregon fans cover or watch Purdue very closely. But this is a guy that I think is impressive that Oregon was able to get him. As I alluded to, this is his number one safety in the transfer portal, number 11 player overall. Let's call it top 10 player in the portal. Oregon, this guy, he is a lineage player. He has two brothers that came before him, very short, time before him. Both played at Purdue and finished their careers all the way through Purdue. Jake Thieneman, then Brennan Thieneman. Jake Thieneman actually ended up getting drafted, going or undrafted free agent, going to spend a little bit of time with the New York Giants. So he had two brothers, both safeties, both had a history of playing at Purdue all 4 years, and he shows that, hey, I have the ability to stay out, finish. Obviously, it's a big time family school, somewhere where he wants to be, but he goes over to Oregon, and I think he's showing that this is a guy, he doesn't want to be like those guys and fizzle out. He wants to go up to the next level. I think this is a sign showing that Oregon, it's becoming a destination for these kind of players. We're seeing the top players in the portal say, I like this school, but I think I can further my career at Oregon. And this might be a trend we see going down the stretch. Is guys that start out at smaller schools look really good, but then like, hey, I want to go play big time NFL football. Where can I, develop, finish out my career at? Where is a good place to stop? And that's the Oregon Ducks. So I think seeing something like this, where there's a guy who had strong ties to Purdue, had a strong family lineage Purdue, but sees Oregon as, hey, this is a place where I had really great freshman year. I had really great times playing at Purdue. If I stayed at Purdue, I probably would have gotten drafted some way, shape, or form. But I want to be at the top. I want everyone to see me. I want to be playing on the biggest stages. I'm going to go to the Oregon Ducks, and I think that in itself is a really good sign for the Ducks going forward.